Hello one, hello all, it's the most gothiest ghost of them all, Kespa in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Reverend Christian Micheal Hayter-Saved. Reverend Christian Micheal Hayter is a singer, songwriter, piano player, and this is the first album underneath the Reverend Christian Micheal Hayter name. And she's definitely been at it for a while, formerly known as Lingua Ignota, where she delivered these very hellish, very tortured, very tormented religious tie-ins, and the production was a lot more colossal then, and her vocals ranged from these operatic, passionate vocals to just screaming her absolute brains out all over the track. And although I did enjoy that, that was coming from a place of harrowing experiences, of heartbreak, abuse. So it's really no surprise that she would want to get away from that, especially not being in that situation anymore that she was involved in. And who could blame her? So now she is taking on the Reverend moniker, where she is speaking from the perspective of the Appalachian Pentecostal church. She is speaking from a place of religiosity, but more head-on and opposed to religious ties to abuse. So although I do love All Bitches Die, I do love Caligula, and absolutely love Sinner Get Ready, obviously, I'm happy and I respect her for trying out new things, trying out new ventures, and this time around it's a lot more raw, it's a lot more stripped back. And when I say raw and stripped back, I mean this was recorded on tape cassettes, on half-broken tape recorders, all done purposely, mind you. This was to give you this illusion of someone who has gone to these Appalachian services and recorded them with a tape recorder and are exposing these services for the cultish ways that they conduct their religion. And although it is purposely rough around the edges, I do think there are some tracks where I feel like maybe it was done by accident and opposed to a purpose, because there are ways that purposely these sounds are tampered with. But when the vocals start going in and out, I seriously thought my headphones were on the fritz. But no, it was in effect on the track. And I do enjoy how the song could have a double meaning to it, while Hayter is telling you, get out while you still can. And to me, I think that's like a double meaning due to how, on one hand, she's saying this as in, get out of this sinning while you still can, get out of this while you still can and seek redemption, or get out of this religious cult while you still can. There's definitely a double meaning here, and I do enjoy that aspect of it. I just wish it was mixed a little better. But we are cooking with absolute gas and lighting the fire and brimstone on the next track, which was a single going into this, All My Friends Are Going to Hell, with these foreboding piano chords, elongated, yelpy vocals. None of them know from what I can tell, going to hell. Like, it's very performative, as Kristen normally does, and it's very theatrical, but also very churchy as well. And it is just so unhinged. Like, a lot of her vocals are very much performative, but very compelling and very disturbing and haunting at the same exact time, as Hayter is giving this disclaimer to her followers, like, get some new friends and disassociate with them because there is a eternal damnation awaiting them, but also there may be an eternal damnation for Hayter going through this, or there may be damnation for our protagonist here, and they're trying to make up for their sins, ask for forgiveness so they don't go to hell. Which you will notice the concept of this album is being saved and seeking purity, seeking forgiveness, which honestly just turns into a snowball of paranoia. So this album is filled with a lot of hymns, some Christian Hayter has written, some that she is covering, but all used geniusly and creatively to progress the narrative and the concept of this album. Like on the following track with these chanty group vocals and very spiritual, very hymny, if that is a word, with Louis Edgar Jones, there is power in the blood, as Christian is saying there is power in the blood, and the blood being Jesus, Jesus being Christianity, and the power is to heal, and giving the perceived surefire solution that Christianity is the way to heal, to avoid damnation. Like the "you will be saved, but only if you believe" type of narrative. And there's also Idume, which interpolates saving grace. I feel my biggest issue here is the way the pianos and the vocals bleed into each other, leaving a very unflattering mix, which honestly is the only thing that holds me back from enjoying this track as a whole. Although I do feel it flows well into the following track, "I Will Always Be With You," with these ominous piano phrases and fluttering feedback that sounds like some sort of creature. Now, even though there's no screaming on this track, and she has deviated away from that, Hayter is definitely giving us sung vocals that are so harrowing, that still provide the intensity and passion as if she still was screaming on this track, because it's still intense and it's still very unsettling, where she delivers this bellowing, haunting refrain, and probably the most haunting refrain on this whole album. "Demon, release me, release me." Obviously, she could sing it better. And at this point of the album is where the listener should be concerned, because we are seeing the paranoia just grow and grow as this album progresses, which is becoming more disturbingly apparent on this album. Also, for a duration of this album, you will notice we get Hayter's vocals, piano, chains, and bells, with the exception of a track on this, "Precious Lord Take My Hand," which is an acoustic cut done with acoustic guitar that's probably one of the most folkiest, or if not the folkiest track on this album. I also want to point out the beauty that I find in here underneath the ugliness that is given here. And when I say ugliness, I mean within the way the recording quality is, within the messaging, the feeling. Because keep in mind, these tapes have been purposely sabotaged, which is why you may hear some weird type of mixing. This is definitely a very creative process that has gone into it, from these tapes being stepped on, getting dirty. But yet there are moments on here that are so moving and so beautiful that you can't help but find the tangibility within the tracks, like on the song "May This Comfort Protect You," where Hayter's vocals are so pristine and so moving. And yes, the pianos sound very brittle, but yet also very heartfelt as well, and very celestial, and just has this unsettling emotional potency. Like, I could just smell the palms burning as I hear these pianos. And also, I want to say the jump scares that are on this album. Yes, it is an album with jump scares. You don't get that often. But it's certainly not tacked on. It certainly plays into the concept of the album. And there's definitely reason for it, being sleep deprivation, hunger, overpraying. It's with the intention of being enlightened, but also tortured at the same time, unfortunately. And through each track, it gets more and more apparent that this is the case. The Poor Wayfaring Stranger is definitely the longest track on this album and probably the most passionate, but also the instrumentation on here, it's so forlorn, it's so hypnotic, it's so entrancing, and the lyrics here are just absolutely tragic as Hayter is speaking on leaving this earth of torment and wanting to be at a better place where she could see her family that has passed on into another world, into heaven. And this is probably the most passionate and most operatic you'll probably hear her on this album. Not to say that she's not passionate or operatic on a lot of tracks here, but I feel this is the most where you're going to receive it. Also, throughout this album, you will notice the thematic focus of the blood of Christ, as we mentioned earlier, which is Christianity, and that plays into one of the most powerful tracks on this album, I Know His Blood Can Make Me Whole, where she is yearning for what she perceives to be purity, redemption, from her past of darkness, her past of singing, and she's just passing this on to the people that are in front of her, saying, I was a sinner just like you, I was a gambler just like you, and she is just passionately forcing this message on with her melodic, harrowing vocals, and the pianos here are just so disorienting, and I love the cultish vocal layers at the end. That goes into another cover, which is the closer, where Hayter has geniusly crafted together one of the most bizarre contrasts I've probably heard on an album all year, and giving the most unhinged, most haunting ending to an album I've probably heard all year, as she is beautifully and pristinely singing on this track with these very serene vocals, these healing type of hymns to uplift, but backed with these very disturbing vocals that, again, I won't spoil for you, from Christian Hayter, as she is just absolutely going out of her mind, ballistic, and just absolutely losing it. But it is not only a haunting, but also a very fitting finish to where this journey was for healing. And now that she's reached this place of, I guess, exhaustion, she is certainly in need of healing once again. But this album, with aside from some tracks that I felt didn't have the best result, but due to the way that this tape was done, I can't really fault them for that, even if I don't really find it to be one of my most favorite parts of the album. But other than that, this album is extremely creative, extremely well done, absolute genius, visceral without screaming, very stripped back but still powerful, and definitely exposes the swindles and the scandals that evangelicals try to pull. And again, very passionate, very moving, and a great album. And another gem to put in the Christian Micheal Hayter catalog. And I'm excited for what's going to come next from this moniker that she is going under. And I'm feeling a 4 out of 5 black hearts on this album. But if you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And that's it. Caspa, Gothic Ghosts, Reverend Christian Micheal Hayter, saved till we meet again.